Here's part 7, guys. I got this cool fisheye lens. Check this shit out. Alright. So, where did I leave? I left off on page 75. The U.S. Constitution and our money system. To fully understand money, as used in the United States, we need to review a little history before and after the adoption of the United States Constitution. During the years immediately preceding the adoption of the Constitution, mobs drove our Congress from Philadelphia into New Jersey and shot up the courthouses. In Massachusetts, actually. These events were illustrative of the general situation existing throughout the country with respect to law and order. Money was worth anywhere from 2.5 cents on the dollar down to nothing. Credit was ruined, trade paralyzed, and discipline at a low ebb. Anarchy, bankruptcy, and confusion prevailed. This situation was so desperate, and the problems so perplexing, that during 1785 through 1786, in the first part of 1787, the years immediately preceding the writing of the United States Constitution, George Washington's letters to his friends were filled with gloom and despair. So he told them how futile the efforts of the past seemed, how awful the present was, and how bleak the future seemed. He wrote numerous letters in a tone similar to the ones from which brief excerpts are quoted below. Remember that the Constitution was signed September 17th, 1787. On October 7th, 1785, George Washington wrote to James Warren, "The wheels of government are clogged, and we are descending into a vale of confusion and darkness." This letter was written nearly 10 years after the Declaration of Independence was signed and long after the Revolutionary War was over. On August 1st, 1786, a little over a year before the Constitution was signed, Washington wrote to James Madison, "No day was ever more clouded than the present. We are fast verging into anarchy and confusion." On December 26, 1786, less than 9 months before the Constitution was signed, Washington wrote to Henry Knox, "I feel, my dear General Knox, infinitely more than I can express to you, for the disorders which have arisen in these states. Good God! Who could have foreseen and predicted them?" Then on February 3rd, 1787, Washington again wrote to Henry Knox, "If any person had told me that there would be such formidable rebellion as exists, I would have thought him a bedlamite, a fit subject for a madhouse." Bedlamite, that's a good word. It took slightly more than 4 months to write the Constitution, almost a year to have it ratified, then another year to set up the government under it. Yet within 3 years, conditions had so changed that Washington began writing letters of cheer and hope. On June 3rd, 1790, Washington wrote to Marquis de Lafayette, "You have doubtless been informed, from time to time, of the happy progress of our affairs. Our revenues have been considerably more productive than it was imagined it would be." On July 19th, 1791, Washington wrote to Catherine McElroy Graham, "The United States enjoys a scene of prosperity and tranquility under the new government that could hardly been hoped for. Within 5 years, we had credit around the world, law and order reigned supreme, and thoughtful men were asking, what was it that those men did brought about such wonderful change? Confusion and distress due to ignorance about money." So, here's what John Adams had to say about the subject of money. "All the perplexities, confusion, and distress in America arise not from defects in their Constitution or Confederation, not from want of honor or virtue, so much as from downright ignorance of the nature of coin, credit, and circulation. It is not widely known that the Constitution deals with economics, and most people are surprised to learn that the purpose of the Constitutional Convention was to take into consideration the trade and commerce of the United States, as stated by Alexander Hamilton, and report to Congress 1786, recommending that there be a convention. It was the purpose of the convention to establish currency consisting of those precious metals. These were affixed by a permanent rule forbidding the use of perishable medium of exchange such as certain agricultural products recognized by the statutes of some states as tender for debts, or the still more pernicious expedient of paper currency, as President Andrew Jackson stated in his message to Congress on December 5th, 1836. There is no better way for me to give you the history of bills and credit used for money in the United States than to encourage you to read George Bancroft's book, A Plea for the Constitution of the United States, available from Spencer Judd Publications. Gold and silver in the U.S. Constitution. Gold and silver were always to be the people's money. There is only one way for gold and silver to get into circulation, and that is to go find it. Dig it up out of the ground, and then take the bullion and have it coined into money, have it monetized. So the Constitution clearly states that Congress was to do the coining, monetizing, so that all the people would be assured weight and purity was correct, and the value was in accordance with the guidelines set forth by Congress. In other words, they were to set the value thereof. On December 16, 1789, the Pennsylvania Gazette had this to say: since the federal Constitution has removed all danger of having paper tender, our trade has advanced 50%. Our moneyed people can trust their case abroad and have the coin into circulation. Merrill Jenkins Sr., in his book, Greatest Hoax on Earth, I like that title, said the writers of the Constitution knew exactly what they were doing when they wrote in Article 1, Section 10, Paragraph 1, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin tender in payment of debts. That's key to understand. Before going any further, I want to strongly emphasize the words of debt-free. It is not just that gold and silver was used, but the fact that gold or silver coin was brought into circulation. Debt-free. This is key. Gold or silver backed money loaned into circulation would be a little better than what we have now. The important point is that it must be understood whenever it is used as money, gold, silver, Federal Reserve notes, Treasury notes, whatever, it must be put into circulation debt-free. From the Supreme Court of South Dakota, April 5th, 1892, in State versus Scougal, Scougal, Northwestern Reporter, Volume 51, we read, in 1694, the British Parliament chartered the Bank of England and conferred upon that bank the power to issue on-demand notes to circulate as money. That was the beginning of paper money. Bank-issued debt money as we know it to be in use today in our country. The Bank of England did not then, nor does it now, belong to the English government, but it is owned by individuals. Their power has grown from that day until now. And it will continue to grow unless the English people put a stop to it. In the United States, our central bank, the Federal Reserve, is also owned by private bankers. Private bankers control all the central banks in the world because the citizens of those countries are as ignorant about money as the Americans. We have been made slaves to these privately owned central banks through the issuing of money, which they loan us and tax us for its use through the interest. A return to honest money, as mandated in the United States Constitution, is our only hope. Money is an obvious necessity. Businesses, society, government could not continue to operate without a convenient medium of exchange. They must get into circulation among all the people by a method that will benefit everybody equally, and which will not incur debts to anyone in getting into circulation. So, under our present money system, all the debt-free and interest-free money has been withdrawn from circulation. The people, not understanding our debt money system, have tried to continue running their businesses by borrowing and being forced to use the interest-bearing substitute of banking credit money. This they do, or else they go out of business, or figure out some angle to get someone else's borrow money and leave them to hold the debt. Using debt money is kind of like being pregnant. It starts out with what seems like great pleasure. Bank credits enable people to write words and numbers or simply say, charge it. For the goods yesterday were only wished for. This enhances the illusion that little labor brings great rewards. It really does. Since they do not understand the danger of collateralizing, mortgaging their borrowed words and numbers with real property, the day comes when they realize there is so much debt that it is impossible to pay. When the stage of pregnancy, when the baby gets to be so large that it is very cumbersome to carry, then come the great pains of birth. In this case, the vanishing freedoms that we notice. The difficulty is understanding that our debt money system simply cannot function much longer. If the present pain brought on by the use of debt money brings to the people an understanding and the return to an honest debt-free money, then the freedom is worth the pain. If not, it is like having a stillborn baby. You have the pain and suffering and still lose the property with nothing to look forward to but another cycle of rising debt and an eventual collapse. Like the coming of a baby, the exact time of collapse cannot be accurately predicted. Let's continue with the history of money in our country. The United States, by an act of Congress, established mints for the free coinage of gold and silver, with silver coins being the same as Spanish silver coins, which was the coin in usage at the time. An act establishing a mint regulating the coins of the United States was passed April 12, 1792. It was realized that the government, businesses, society could not function without money, that gold and silver were the metals which served best as money. That it was the duty of government to encourage the production of gold and silver and the coining of its into money. This purpose, that's why mints were built, is so that people could just bring their money in to get it coined for free. That's from the 1792 Coinage Act. All the gold and silver was brought to the mint by the people. It was coined into money, monetized, free of charge. It was free coinage. This was money in its purest form, money owned by the people, furnished by the people, from the sweat of their brow. It was monetized and put into circulation free of debt. The supply increased to meet the needs of the people. There was no interest, usury, charged against it. No interest charged against the money. It's slavery. Usury is slavery. And this part gets into usury. Usury in the Bible, actually. The word usury in the Bible, usury, see Exodus 22:25, Leviticus 25:35 through 37, Nehemiah 5:1-13, Psalms 15:5, and in under other divine law, any interest on money was usury. Now, under man-made law, usury is considered interest in excess of the legal rate, which by practice is almost universally ignored one way or another. Our founding fathers prohibited the states from emitting bills of credit, paper money in our Constitution, which makes it wrong for private bankers to create paper money, OTA, out of thin air, putting the American people in slavery with their debt usury money system. Article 1, Section 10, no state shall coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin as a tender in payment of debts. This usury money system is a destroyer of nations. Usury is interest on the money itself. It is not the same as sharing of profit from an increase in goods or production of real wealth earned by the sweat of your brow. In 1791, Congress passed a law chartering the Bank of the United States. It was drafted by Alexander Hamilton, then Secretary of Treasury. It was opposed by Attorney General Edmund Randolph and Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson. They claimed it was unconstitutional and crafted a powerful agency for the monopoly of money. It was a great mistake because it left open the door to have privately owned central banks such as the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve banking system in the United States, which is nothing but all the banks under one central control. That's really all the global economy is. It's all under control by these, since Bretton Woods especially, every country has to buy the dollar first in order to make any kind of transactions globally. So these banks have the authority to issue all the money as debt or loan with accruing interest. This means the American people have moved from their own debt-free money to bank money. To obtain this money, we must borrow it from the banks and pay interest on it. After a long debate in Congress, with Congress divided between the view of Hamilton and Jefferson, the bill passed. With this, the first central bank, the Bank of the United States, was established with a 20-year charter. Oh, wow. While the bank was named the United States Bank, it was not owned by the United States government, but individuals who owned stock in the bank. Many of these individuals lived in England and owned stock in the Bank of England also. In 1809, a bill came before Congress to renew the charter of the United States Bank. The charter was to expire in 1811. In the debate over the bill, Jefferson said it was unconstitutional and is more dangerous than a standing army. Just a great quote right there. That's such a good quote. Mr. P.B. Porter, a member of Congress during the debate, said, "Let the principle of constructive or implied powers be once established, in the extent to which it must be carried in order to pass the bill. And you will have to be planted in the bosom of the Constitution. You have to plant a viper in the bosom of the Constitution, which one way or another will sting the liberties of this country to the heart." Such a good analogy. Another congressman, Mr. Wright, said the charter is a cancer upon the body politic. The Encyclopedia Americana, Volume 3, page 170 through 171, recorded by Mr. Boyd, I had to say, the bank is a great swindle. Yeah, definitely. The greatest swindle, in my opinion. The encyclopedia went on to say that the press referred to the bill and the bank charter in various derogatory names such as Hydra, Cobra, Gorgon, Vulture, and Viper. So then we can all understand the words used by those in the opposition to the bill. Let's take a quick look at Webster's New Dictionary. Hydra in Greek mythology, the nine-headed serpent slain by Hercules. When he cut off one of its heads, two would replace it, hence a persistent, ever-increasing evil. Cobra, a very, very poisonous snake. Gorgon, in Greek mythology, any three sisters with snakes for hair, so horrible that the beholder was turned into stone. Vulture, any greedy and ruthless person who preys upon others. Viper, any of various snakes, a treacherous person. Fortunately, the bill was killed. The freedom of America was once again saved by good, honest men who stood up and were counted. The capital stock of the bank was $10 million as required. At the expiration of the bank, it was all returned to the stockholders with about 8% interest, all paid in gold and silver coin. This gold and silver they proceeded to hoard, just as their families before them had done in the 17th century. This hoarding brought the England to its knees and forced the King of England to charter England's central bank, the Bank of England. So, the hoarding of gold and silver created a panic in the United States. This resulted in the failure of state banks because they could not redeem their paper money with gold or silver coins. This was always going to happen with gold and silver-backed paper. Greedy bankers can be counted on to issue more paper than they have gold, guys. Okay, let me read that again. Greedy bankers can be counted on to issue more paper than they have gold. It is easy for the bankers to get people to borrow money and pay interest. After all, everyone trusts their banker. So I'll leave it there. I have to do it short because I have to upload these at the library because my internet's down right now. So, all right, part 8 coming up very soon.